So you want to move to Florida in 2020? This is your last cold winter, right? I know there's a lot of you out there, so stay tuned for my tips on moving to Florida in 2020. Hey everybody, this is Melanie Atkinson, realtor with Smith & Associates in beautiful Tampa Bay, Florida, and today I'm going to talk to all of you out there who are thinking about moving to Florida in 2020. It seems like a good year to move here, doesn't it? I have done a lot of episodes on this channel for new home buyers and new residents to the state of Florida, so today in this episode I wanted to condense some of the topics that I get asked about the most. So let's today answer the what, where, when, why, and how of moving to Florida in 2020. So number one, what does it mean to move to Florida? That sounds like a silly question, I know, but if you watched my episode, Moving to Florida, A New Resident's Guide, you'll understand why residency is so important. Establishing residency can be kind of complicated, especially if you're not planning on being a full-time resident in the state of Florida. Not that we don't want you as a resident here in Florida, but the state that you're leaving probably doesn't want you and your tax dollars to go. So if you are planning on moving here in 2020 and you own a home in another state, or you're not planning on living here full-time, then you need to be diligent in following the rules to establish residency here in the state of Florida. Go ahead and watch that video that I referenced earlier and talk to a lawyer if you have any questions. Now, if you're moving here full-time and you don't own a home in another state, then establishing residency in Florida is basically just doing all the things that you would normally do when you move somewhere. Getting a house, renting or buying, opening bank accounts, paying taxes in the state of Florida, all of that will establish your residency here in Florida. And then once you have established residency, you can proudly call yourself a resident of the state of Florida. Why should you move to Florida? Well, there are a lot of reasons to move here and everybody has their own motivations. Maybe it's for the warm winters or because we have no state income tax. Those are the two I hear the most. Maybe you're being transferred here for work, or maybe you just love Disney World and you want to be close. We have beaches, sunshine, big cities, seaside towns, roller coasters, sports teams, golf courses, outlet malls, grouper sandwiches, and key lime pie. Check out my episodes called Living in Florida and Why Tampa for more information on some great things about living here in Florida. Now, Florida isn't perfect. Just like any other state, we do have our growing pains here. Florida now has the third largest population in the United States, and it's growing every day. With a population of that size and growth that happens so quickly, we do struggle with infrastructure issues, low-income housing issues, and public transportation, just to name a few. Check out my episode called Worst Things About Living in Florida for more information on that. So you know you want to live in Florida, but where exactly in Florida do you want to live? If you're not being transferred here for work to a specific city, then you have a whole state full of tons of different cities and towns to pick from. Everywhere in Florida is different, so you really need to get down here and start exploring. We have everything from rural small towns to vibrant big cities. Ask yourself what is most important to you as far as location is concerned. Do you want to be close to a city or a beach? Do you need an airport nearby? If you're going to be looking for full-time employment, which cities have the most opportunities that fit your skill set? What is your housing budget and what type of housing do you want? Once you start answering some of these questions, that will help you narrow down the areas in Florida that will work for you. The most important thing is for you to plan some time to come down here and visit those cities that you think you might like to live in. But please, when you do that, remember that vacationing in Florida is very different than living in Florida. So when you come down here to visit, don't just spend time in the touristy areas like beaches or amusement parks. Drive into the suburbs and try to talk to locals. If you're just mingling with other tourists, then you're never going to get a good idea of what it's actually like to live there. So when should you move? Whenever you'd like. Florida is a year-round state. We really don't have a time when things get super slow around here. However, keep in mind that the population does swell during the winter months, specifically January through April, because we have so many visitors down here to enjoy our warm winters. As far as real estate is concerned, we do see a little bit of a fluctuation in inventory and prices during certain times of the year. For instance, if you're interested in a home in a great school district, we do tend to see that the peak buying and selling season in these neighborhoods tends to be the spring and summer months before the school year starts. And those cities and towns that have a lot of vacationers and part-time residents tend to have busier selling and buying seasons during the winter months when everyone's down here visiting. But the when really depends on when you're ready. So that brings us right into, how do I move to Florida? So everybody's moving circumstance is different. So I'm going to give you a couple scenarios of circumstances that I run across a lot, and hopefully these will answer questions for the majority of you. The first scenario that I'll go through is a family who wants to move here for the start of the 2020 school year. Do keep in mind that a lot of counties in Florida start school pretty early in mid-August. So if you're going to be moving down here, you're really going to want to be paying attention in May and June so you can be settled before school starts. So let's say that you already know where you want to move. Now we need to start planning the steps on how to move. Do you have a house to sell in your current state? If you need to sell that house to use the money to buy the next house, then you really need to be focusing on that house that you're currently living in and getting it ready for sale. So as you're preparing your house for sale, you're gonna wanna contact a local professional who can help you and give you some tips on what you need to do before the sale of your house. If you don't know somebody, give me a call and I'm happy to refer you to an agent in your area. As you're preparing your house, also set some time aside to plan a trip or two down to the area that you're going to move to. This will help you meet a local realtor that can help you get started to get to know the neighborhoods. That way, when you're ready to move, you can hit the ground running. The goal here is a lot of preparation, but that preparation hopefully will lead to a quick sale in your current state and also allow you to hit the ground running to get a house under contract in your new city once your house in your old city is under contract. So my number one piece of advice here is to not stress too much about the house in the new city before you've addressed the house in your current city. If you need that equity from your current house in order to buy a new house, then you really need to focus your time and energy on that house to get it ready for sale. I know it can be super stressful whenever you're looking online for a new house in a new city, but I promise you, once you get here, it gets a lot easier once you can see those houses in the context of the neighborhoods that they're in. So the next scenario I have is for an individual or family that isn't concerned about schools and may not know if they want to rent or buy once they get here. They just want to come to the area, look for a job, and see whether they like it here. I have been asked the question many times about whether you need employment in the state of Florida in order to find a good rental. Now, it's not terribly unusual for people to relocate somewhere and then look for a job. However, you are going to need to find a landlord or an apartment complex that is okay with the fact that you don't currently have employment. In this scenario, I definitely encourage you to have several months of expenses saved up before you make that move. Remember that because you don't have employment, you are going to be a more risky renter. So if you're moving to an area that's really popular and has a lot of applicants, the landlord may choose another renter over you because of the fact that they can prove employment. So if you already have a job here in Florida and you want to rent, then you need to do your research on where the best place to rent is and decide which type of housing you want: apartment, condo, townhouse, or a single family home. And the final scenario that I will go through is if you're looking to purchase a home in Florida as a retiree. It's not too different from the first scenario that I posed here, especially if you have a house to sell in the state that you're currently in. You will need to prepare that house and yourself for your new life here in Florida. For a lot of people, that is a major downsize for them and they have to get rid of a lot of things. So think about having estate sales so you're not bringing a bunch of things down to Florida that you're not necessarily going to need. The other thing you need to decide is if you want to live in a community specifically designed for people that are 55 and older. If you do, there are tons of options all over the state. And if you don't, the other thing you need to think about is what type of home do you want to live in when you get down here? Do you still want the maintenance of a single family home, or do you want to live in a maintenance-free community with maybe an attached home like a villa or a condo? I also have a lot of clients who don't want to sell their home in the current state that they live in. Then you need to decide which state you want to declare residency in. If that state is Florida, then there's a lot of steps that you're going to need to take in order to establish residency. Again, please watch the video called Moving to Florida, a New Residence Guide. And also, I highly recommend you to consult an attorney. Moving can be very stressful, especially from another state. I totally understand. You have to take it one step at a time and not try to answer all of the questions at the same time. Take a breath and get some professional help. As always, if you're planning on buying or selling in the Tampa Bay area in 2020, please give me a call. I'm happy to help. Thanks for watching this episode, and I'll see you next time. With love, Melanie.